Did not mean to end that video, and we're ending off of it. Popping with color. It was like the hospital was trying really hard to make a sometimes scary, sometimes sad place as cheerful as possible. I appreciated that. See, I've had lots of hospital visits over the years and dozens of doctor appointments. I've been tested and probed with measured. I've had doctors scratch their heads in confusion when they finally figured out that even though my body shows up like a plate of wet spaghetti, my mind is a 10-course meal. But for real, seems to me the people who worked in hospitals are doing their best to make what sometimes is a bad situation a little bit better, and it seemed like they genuinely care about their patients. I should know. I've been there, done that, been at that patient so many times. When we got to room 507, the name G. Gilson was printed in red marker outside her door. I'd never even thought about her last name before. We paused. Should we knock? I didn't have time to decide because the door was opened with a whoosh and a woman in green scrubs hurried out. We rolled in on her energy. In fact, I felt suddenly nervous, speechless. Mrs. G, dressed in a pale blue hospital gown, lay against a pillow with her eyes closed. An IV tube ran into her arm, while soft beeping noises came from a machine that I guess did something. I had no idea. So much from TV shows. Penny grabbed Mrs. V's arm with one hand and mine with the other. Should we wake her up? She whimpered. I'm not asleep. We all jumped. Mrs. G looked over at us and said with a faint British accent, I was just resting my eyes. She smiled. I don't think I've ever seen her smile before. Well, maybe when she's talking to her roses, but never at a mail carrier or an electric meter checking person who stopped by our houses from time to time. My big sister saw you fall down, Penny blurted out. Now Mrs. G turned to me, and she called the police and the ambulance and everybody. Penny informed her, a bit of sass in her voice. So that was you, Mrs. G exclaimed. Then I owe you a tremendous thanks. What's your name? Penny started to answer, but I gave her the side eye and tapped on my board. I'm Melody. That's Penny, my sister. Mrs. G didn't seem the least bit surprised that I answered through her machine. Well, Melody, I'm very glad you made the call. She gave a sweet, bubbly laugh. I don't remember much except waking up to a very handsome paramedic trying to rescue me. Seeing her laugh was a little weird. I'd always thought she was kind of grumpy. I mean, she'd wave at me, but she'd never really talk to anyone. And now I feel bad. It turned out she was just a nice old lady, so I laughed as well. Are you going to be okay? Penny asked. Yes, dear, I think I shall. She scooched up a little on her pillow, gently touched the bandage on her forehead. That's wonderful to hear, Mrs. V said. And we waved to each other. But I'm Violet. I live kitty corner across the street from you. I'll be sure to water your roses and check your mail and such for as long as you need, ma'am. I appreciate that. Mrs. G smoothed out her sheet. And please don't call me ma'am. I'm Gertie to my friends, and I've decided that you are now my friend. Unexpectedly, this caused Penny to frown. "But you don't like pie." Mrs. G looked surprised. "Pie? But I love pie," she said finally. "Blueberry is my favorite." Penny's face went stern. "Mommy made you a pie a long time ago," she muttered, a hint of occasion in her voice. But you told her you don't like pie." Mrs. G paused. Then, after a moment, answered, "I'm sorry, sweet girl. Sometimes then sorrow takes over. Kindness can hide from you." I wasn't sure if Penny understood, but I glanced at Mrs. V and we nodded at each other. Mrs. G continued, "Years and years ago, I had a carrier I loved and a husband I loved even more. We traveled the world together, appearing in films and performing live on stage. We lived in a lovely flat in London that was walking distance at the Thames River, all the theaters you'd ever want to see, and oh, so many museums." "Which one?" I tapped, curious. "The British Museums, for one, and the Victoria and Albert Museum, from the Royal's crown to the world's first Christmas card to the 8-foot wide petticoat, and the V&A could extract me for days." I giggled, picturing myself in an 8-foot petticoat. Mrs. G clearly enjoyed these memories of her hometown. Continued, "A natural history museum has over 1,000,000 fossil specimens, plus there's the Science Museum. I've got a part of a real Boeing 747 in there somewhere. I was thinking those must be awesome." Mrs. G gave a soft sigh, a distant look in her eyes. I'd love to see my London again." Hold on, guys. Chapter 9 is, from chapter 8, it was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. I'm sorry, guys. "And do you have family there?" Mrs. V asked. "Yes, I do." But she said no more. Just as I was thinking, maybe it was a long time ago, Penny piped up with a, "Did you ever see dinosaurs?" And just like that, Mrs. G was laughing again. "No, sweetie, no dinosaurs, but I remembered black and white television and telephones that you had to dial. Well, before cellular phones, you called your friends on a big black phone you hung on your kitchen wall, but only if your mother let you." Mrs. V added warily. Mrs. G eyes lit up. The first cell phones were those big, fat Motorola's the size of a shoe. We hand wrote letters to friends and mailed them with a stamp. "Why don't you just use Zibber Zabber?" Penny asked. Social media hadn't been invented yet, Mrs. V and Mrs. G said nearly in unison. My brain was scrambling, trying to imagine this world, but they were describing it. They kept going. If you wanted to find some information, you had to look it up on a endless Skypepedia. Mrs. G continued, "It must have taken forever to find out anything. Cameras contained an actual roll of film inside." Mrs. G said, "And we had to take them to the drugstore and wait a week for the film and get developed." Mrs. G finished with Mrs. G laughed so hard and began to cough. I made a grunt and pointed toward the pitcher of water on the bedside tray. Mrs. V nodded, poured some water into a paper cup, and held it up to me. "Mrs. G's lips," she said, a grateful sip, and then started up again. "Speaking of a roll, we watched Rock and Roll Get Born, which we mostly listen to on the radios. Elvira Presley, the Beatles, Little Richard, Doris Day's, Etta James. Whoa, those were old school for sure. So cool. It was like Mrs. G and Mrs. V were playing a verbal volleyball game. Most kids played outside and every day with their friends, Mrs. V said. And we rode our bikes miles away from home and caught my attention. It must have been really hard for kids like me back when Mrs. G was a kid. Google Maps didn't exist. We used Giant, found out paper maps, and were free at the gas station. Paper maps? How the heck would you drive and look paper at a big old map at the same time? Mrs. G looked thoughtful for a moment. My mother always wore a hat, shined leather shoes, and white gloves, even if a grocery store. No jeans, I tapped. She shook her head. Heavens, no. Mother would be horrified. Cheeks pink, she asked for another sip of water. This had been great fun. I honestly did not expect many visitors. When one is my age, one has very few friends left. You got me, Penny exclaimed, her curls bouncing. Aunt Dee Dee and Mrs. V too. Mrs. G clasped her hands. I do indeed. Aunt Dee Dee is going on TV tomorrow, Penny announced with pride. As she should be. Mrs. G reached for my hand, surprising me. Most people are scared to do that. Her hand was soft like a small bird. I'm very thankful for what you did, Melody. Who knows what might have happened? Then she whispered to Penny, and if the doctor gives the okay, I'm going to be joining you on TV tomorrow. She was? Me in a movie star? What universe was this? Before I could react, Mrs. V said, we ought to be heading home. I hope we haven't exhausted you with our little visit, she said, an apology in her voice. Mrs. G processed immediately. No. I cuffed to have company. I had realized how lonely I've gotten. Cuffed, asked Penny. Oh, we say that in England when we mean very happy. It's a fun word, isn't it? Mrs. G exclaimed. Penny nodded, occasionally murmuring, cuffed. A nurse stepped into the room, gave us a smile, and then began checking the gauges and tubes and monitors by Mrs. G's bed. Well, Mrs. V said into silence, we've taken up enough of Mrs. G's time. She looked pointedly at me and Penny. Can we come back? Penny asked. Oh, Mrs. G will be released by tomorrow, honey. I tapped on my board. May I could visit you when you get home, Mrs. G? I'd like that very much, Melody. She waved as we turned to leave the room. Somehow I made a friend of a zillion-year-old lady. I sure didn't expect that. I woke up the morning and, like I said, don't worry for one moment about your Tropicans. I leave an eye on them until you're fit as a fiddle, Mrs. V assured. I appreciate that, Mrs. G replied, as long as it doesn't take time away from your blue jays. You know about them? Mrs. V asked. The whole neighborhood knows about those squawking birds. They make themselves heard. Mrs. G laughs. Just because I kept it to myself doesn't mean I don't know what's going on. Chapter 9. I'm going to check how long these next couple chapters are. Because I have to go to 16. And I'm not even at chapter 11 yet. There we go. Chapter 12. I missed a chapter, but that's 14. 15. 16. we'll see. Because I don't know if I'm going to be able to do this. But I'll try my best to read all of them that I can. I'm going to need a backpack by the end of this, but... let's just finish reading this. Because this is just too much for me, but it works. Chapter 9. My brain was sizzling when I got home. I was obsessed with England. First, I watched a documentary about Queen Elizabeth, the processions, the percussions of the soldiers, the parades, the pageantry. I'm using a million words that started with the letter P. Me and words, we've got it going. Even if it was mostly in my head, I couldn't get enough of it all. And whoa, the bagpipes, they sounded like an accent of futuristic. Like they might be ordinary music to the planet Mars. I could listen to that all day. I pumped the volume. Dad looked into my room as if to say, what the heck? Then he just shook his head and left. I read about King Arthur and Beowulf and Chaucer. I found an old movie about King Arthur, and then the Knights of the Round Table, and watched that next. New fact, or just saying, and the Knights of the Round Table at my school, it's a knight, like as a mascot, and we do Knights of the Round Table every single month, like who's doing the best. So fun fact. Anyway, who knew England history was so fascinating? Well, now I did. Wars were won with gleaming magical swords. Knights in armor fought on horsebacks, and the horses were armored too. And were dozens of kings and queens, kings and queens to be discovered. I couldn't believe Mrs. G grew up there. After dinner, I looked up films and plays that had been in Yowzer. There were lots. Love's Last Laugh, Heavenly Heaven, Macbeth, King Lear, Piccadilly Predicament. I rolled into the living room and watched the one about the clouds. It was so good. She played the part of a lonely girl who had fallen in love with a farmer's son. She was really good. And it was amazing to see her so young. She had a type of smile that you want to smile. That makes you want to smile. I almost forgot about the visit to the TV station tomorrow. Almost, until Mom came in. A strange look on her face. What's wrong? I asked. Why aren't you in the hospital? Oh, nothing's wrong. They were overstaffed, so I got to leave early. But I've got something incredible to show you. Mom perched next to me on the sofa. So I was just online checking something. She paused, and Melody, are you trending number in Zibber Zabber? I gasped. Me, Zibber Zabber is the most popular social media site in the country, maybe even the world. Famous people use it. All of the kids at school use it. Everybody who is anybody uses it. So no way me, and nobody trending. No way. News of saving Mrs. G's life in the biggest story of a day. You have thousands of new followers. She looks from me to the phone, then to me, and then the phone, as if she couldn't believe it. I blinked, trying to process this information. Mom gave me more to take in by adding the television station has called several times, making sure you will be there tomorrow. 2 other stations want to interview you as well. What did you tell them? I tapped suddenly panicked. I told them that Channel 12 had the exclusive and they would have to watch you there. I also told Channel 12 what was going on. and they were very pleased that I had done that. The Game of the Thrones theme song rang out, and Mom was on the phone again. I wheeled myself into my room, opened Zibber Zabber on Elvira. Oh my gosh, I was there. Plain old ordinary can't walk, can't talk melody was all over the place. There were the pictures of me from camp where I did get those. Okay, guys, I'm just gonna start reading like however much I can do and stuff, because I can't read all this right now. I have a bad hangnail. But anyway, I will read some more, and I'm not doing like a goal, like how many chapters a day. I'm just gonna do how much I can. So yeah.